Wu Wei, Lao Tzu, written and published by Ngasline. Imagine trying to force yourself to fall asleep. The harder you concentrate, the more desperately you attempt to will yourself into slumber, the more elusive rest becomes. Yet the moment you release that iron grip of control, when you finally stop trying, sleep arrives effortlessly, like a leaf floating down to still water. This paradox lies at the heart of one of humanity's most profound yet counterintuitive discoveries, the art of effortless action, known in ancient China as Wu Wei. In a world that celebrates hustle culture and relentless striving, where we're constantly pushing, forcing, and muscling our way through life, this ancient wisdom offers a revolutionary alternative. It suggests that our greatest achievements might come not from trying harder, but from learning to do less. 2.5 millennia ago, in the misty mountains of ancient China, a sage named Lao Tzu understood something that modern science is only beginning to grasp. Nature accomplishes everything without forcing anything. Rivers shape mountains not through brute force, but by following the path of least resistance. Trees grow not by fighting against gravity, but by dancing with the winds and reaching toward the sun. Even the cosmos itself expands not through effort, but through the effortless unfolding of natural law. What if we could bring this same effortless power to our own lives? What if, instead of swimming against the current of existence, we could learn to flow with it? What if the key to achievement isn't in doing more, but in doing less, with greater harmony, wisdom, and natural ease? This is not a call to passivity or inaction. Rather, it is an invitation to discover a different way of moving through the world, one that ancient sages understood and modern masters still practice. It is the art of accomplishing more by forcing less, of achieving greatness through alignment rather than struggle, of finding power in surrender rather than control. Understanding Wu Wei. In ancient Chinese philosophy, there exists a profound concept that challenges our modern notions of achievement and success. Wu Wei, often translated as non-doing or effortless action, represents a state of being where actions flow naturally and effortlessly, like water finding its path down a mountain. This seemingly paradoxical idea suggests that the most effective way to accomplish something is to align with the natural order rather than forcing our will upon situations. Imagine a skilled surfer riding a wave. They don't fight against the ocean's power. Instead, they harmonize with it, reading its movements and adjusting their position accordingly. This is Wu Wei in action. The surfer achieves their goal not through forceful manipulation, but through understanding and working with the natural flow of events. The concept of Wu Wei doesn't advocate for passivity or inaction. Rather, it promotes a kind of intelligent spontaneity where actions arise naturally from a deep understanding of the situation at hand. Consider a master musician who, after years of practice, no longer thinks about individual notes, but allows the music to flow through them effortlessly. Their technical skill combines with intuitive understanding to create something beautiful without conscious effort. When we force actions or try to control outcomes, we often create resistance and unintended consequences. Think of trying to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more elusive sleep becomes. Wu Wei suggests releasing this forceful approach and allowing things to unfold naturally. It's about recognizing the appropriate moment for action and allowing that action to arise spontaneously from our wisdom and experience. The paradox of Wu Wei lies in its suggestion that we can accomplish more by doing less. This doesn't mean being lazy or negligent, but rather being selective and efficient in our actions. Like a skilled gardener who understands when to plant, when to water, and when to simply let nature take its course, we learn to recognize when our intervention is needed and when it might actually hinder progress. In our daily lives, Wu Wei manifests in those moments when we find ourselves in the zone, when actions flow naturally and time seems to dissolve. Athletes call this state being in the flow. Artists refer to it as being inspired, and children experience it naturally in play. These are all expressions of Wu Wei, where action arises spontaneously without forced effort. Understanding Wu Wei requires us to shift our perspective from one of control to one of alignment. Instead of seeing ourselves as separate from the natural flow of life, we recognize our place within it. This understanding allows us to move through life with greater ease and effectiveness, accomplishing what needs to be done without unnecessary struggle. The practice of Wu Wei begins with observation and awareness. By paying attention to the natural rhythms and patterns in our lives, we can better understand when to act and when to refrain from action. This might mean waiting for the right moment to have an important conversation, allowing a creative solution to emerge naturally, or recognizing when our efforts are creating more problems than they solve. Wu Wei teaches us that true power lies not in forcing our way through life, but in aligning ourselves with the natural way of things. Like a reed that bends with the wind rather than standing rigid and breaking, we learn to be flexible and responsive to life's changing circumstances while maintaining our essential nature. The wisdom of Lao Tzu. The truth is not always beautiful, nor beautiful words the truth. Lao Tzu. In the misty mountains of ancient China during the 6th century BC lived a sage whose teachings would ripple through time, touching countless lives across millennia. Lao Tzu, whose name translates to Old Master, served as an archivist in the imperial library of the Zhou dynasty. Legend tells us that before disappearing into the western wilderness, he wrote the Tao Te Ching at the request of a border guard, leaving behind 81 brief chapters of profound wisdom that would become the foundation of Taoism. The Tao Te Ching, literally meaning the classic of the way and its power, presents a philosophy that stands in stark contrast to the complex intellectual traditions of its time. At its heart lies the concept of simplicity, not as a mere reduction of complexity, but as a return to our natural state of being. Lao Tzu observed that humans had strayed from their original nature through the accumulation of knowledge, desires, and social conventions. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu introduces us to the Tao, often translated as the Way. The Tao represents the natural order of the universe, the underlying principle that governs all things. It cannot be adequately described in words, as he famously states in the opening lines. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. This paradox sets the tone for his entire philosophy. The deepest truths of existence cannot be captured by human language or understood through intellectual analysis. Lao Tzu's teachings emphasize the power of simplicity and naturalness. He uses metaphors from nature to illustrate his points. Water, which is soft and yielding yet can overcome the hardest stone. The empty space in a vessel, which makes it useful. The uncarved block representing our original nature before society's conditioning. These images convey profound truths about power, utility, and authenticity. The sage's wisdom extends beyond philosophical contemplation into practical guidance for living. He advocates for rulers to govern with a light touch, for people to live simply and contentedly, and for everyone to cultivate inner peace rather than external achievements. His concept of Wei, action through non-action, suggests that the most effective way to accomplish something is to allow it to happen naturally rather than forcing it. Lao Tzu's philosophy challenges many contemporary values. While modern society often celebrates ambition, accumulation, and constant activity, he promotes contentment, simplicity, and stillness. Where we seek to control and manipulate our environment, he advises us to align ourselves with the natural flow of life. His teachings remind us that true power comes not from dominating others, but from mastering ourselves. The wisdom of Lao Tzu remains remarkably relevant today. In our era of increasing complexity, environmental crisis, and widespread anxiety, his message of returning to simplicity and natural harmony offers a potential antidote to modern ailments. His insights into leadership, personal development, and the nature of change continue to influence fields as diverse as business management, environmental conservation, and personal growth. Through the centuries, the Tao Te Ching has been translated hundreds of times. each version offering new interpretations of Lao Tzu's deceptively simple words. Yet the essential message remains constant. By aligning ourselves with the natural way of things, by embracing simplicity and spontaneity, we can find peace, effectiveness, and authentic power in our lives. The old master's teachings continue to offer guidance to those seeking wisdom in an increasingly complex world. The art of letting go. In ancient Chinese temples, there lived a monk who spent years trying to achieve enlightenment through strict discipline and rigid control of his thoughts and actions. Despite his endless efforts, peace eluded him. One day, while tending to the temple garden, he accidentally dropped a precious ceramic pot. As he watched it fall, he had a moment of complete surrender. And in that instant of letting go, he experienced the profound truth he had been seeking all along. The art of letting go lies at the heart of Wu Wei. It's not about becoming passive or surrendering to fate, but rather about releasing our grip on the need to control everything in our lives. This release creates space for natural movements and authentic experiences to emerge. When we constantly try to manipulate outcomes or force situations to bend to our will, we create resistance and struggle. Like trying to hold on to water by squeezing it tightly, the harder we grip, the more it slips through our fingers. Releasing control begins with awareness of our attachment patterns. We often cling to specific outcomes, ideas about how things should be, or versions of ourselves that no longer serve us. These attachments create suffering because they keep us locked in struggle with reality. The practice of Wei invites us to observe these patterns without judgment and gradually loosen our hold on them. Accepting what is doesn't mean resignation or giving up on our desires. Instead, it means acknowledging reality as it unfolds moment by moment. When we resist the present moment, we create internal tension that blocks our natural flow. Consider a river meeting a boulder. It doesn't fight against the obstacle, but flows around it effortlessly. This is the wisdom of acceptance, working with circumstances rather than against them. Breaking free from attachments requires understanding the difference between holding and clutching. We can hold our goals, relationships, and possessions lightly while still caring deeply about them. This light touch allows for natural evolution and change. Like a parent watching their child grow, we learn to love without possessing, to guide without controlling, and to care without smothering. The practice of letting go extends to our thoughts and emotions as well. Rather than trying to suppress negative feelings or force positive ones, we can allow our emotional landscape to flow naturally. This doesn't mean we become victims of our emotions, but rather that we develop the capacity to experience them without becoming entangled in them. Like clouds passing through the sky, we learn to let thoughts and feelings move through us without clinging to them. Physical practices can support this journey of letting go. Simple exercises like consciously relaxing tensed muscles, practicing deep breathing, or engaging in activities like Tai Chi help us experience the feeling of release in our bodies. These embodied experiences of letting go create neural pathways that make emotional and mental release more accessible. True letting go paradoxically leads to greater effectiveness in life. When we release our rigid expectations and control patterns, we become more responsive to reality and better able to work with changing circumstances. Like a skilled martial artist who yields to an opponent's force rather than meeting it head-on, we learn to accomplish more by forcing less. This art of letting go transforms not only our individual experience, but also our relationships and interactions with the world. As we release our need to control others or manipulate situations, we create space for authentic connections and natural solutions to emerge. We discover that many of our problems solve themselves when we stop interfering with the natural flow of life. Flow states and Wu Wei. A master archer in ancient China was renowned for his extraordinary ability to hit targets with perfect accuracy while appearing completely at ease. When asked about his technique, he simply replied, "I draw the bow and let the arrow release itself." The concept of flow states shares a remarkable kinship with Wu Wei, as both describe a state of effortless action where our activities seem to unfold naturally and spontaneously. This Natural rhythm emerges when we release our grip on forcing outcomes and allow our innate abilities to express themselves freely. Like water finding its path down a mountain, our actions become fluid and purposeful without strain. Flow states occur when we are fully immersed in an activity, losing track of time and self-consciousness. Athletes call this being in the zone. Artists experience it when creativity flows through them, and musicians feel it when the music plays itself. This state mirrors Wu Wei's principle of non-forcing, where action arises from a place of natural alignment rather than forced effort. The connection between flow and Wu Wei becomes evident in how both states emerge. Just as Wu Wei emphasizes acting in accordance with the natural way, flow states appear when we find the sweet spot between challenge and skill. When we're neither overwhelmed nor underwhelmed, but engaged in activity that perfectly matches our capabilities, we enter this effortless state of being. Finding your natural rhythm requires attention to the subtle signals of your body and mind. Notice when activities feel forced versus when they unfold naturally. Perhaps you've experienced this while engaging in a hobby you love. Time seems to disappear and actions flow spontaneously. This is Wu Wei in action, manifesting through the vehicle of flow. Achieving effortless performance paradoxically requires preparation and practice. Like the master archer who practiced for years before achieving such naturalness, we must develop our skills to the point where they become second nature. The difference lies in the approach. Instead of forcing improvement through rigid discipline, we cultivate it through mindful engagement and gradual refinement. Consider a jazz musician improvising. After years of practicing scales and studying music theory, they reach a point where the music flows through them without conscious thought. This represents the marriage of flow and WI. Extensive preparation meeting spontaneous expressions. The musician isn't thinking about what notes to play. They're simply allowing the music to emerge. The practice of finding flow through Wu Wei extends beyond specialized skills into everyday activities. Walking, breathing, conversing. All can be approached with this same quality of effortless attention. When we wash dishes, we can either force our way through the task or find the natural rhythm of water, soap, and movement. When we write, we can either struggle to force words onto the page or allow them to flow naturally from our experience. Cultivating this state requires trust in our natural capabilities and the courage to let go of controlling every aspect of our performance. It means embracing uncertainty and allowing ourselves to be guided by intuition rather than rigid planning. When we align with our natural rhythm, we discover that effort doesn't always equal effectiveness, and forcing doesn't lead to flow. The state of flow through Wu Wei represents a profound shift in how we approach action and achievement. Instead of pushing against resistance, we learn to move with the current of our natural abilities. Like the master archer, we discover that our greatest achievements come not from forcing our will upon the world, but from allowing our authentic expression to emerge naturally and effortlessly. We in relationships. In the dance of human connections, Wu Wei reveals its most delicate and profound expressions. Consider a flower garden. Each plant grows naturally, neither competing nor forcing its way, yet creating a harmonious whole. Our relationships can flourish in much the same way when we embrace the principle of non-interference and allow natural connections to develop. The art of Wu Wei in relationships begins with releasing our need to control others. Often, we approach relationships with predetermined expectations, trying to mold others into what we think they should be. This creates resistance and strain, much like trying to force a river to flow upstream. Instead, Wu Wei teaches us to appreciate people as they are, allowing their authentic nature to express itself freely. When we practice Wu Wei in our connections with others, we learn to listen deeply without immediately trying to fix or change situations. This creates space for genuine understanding and empathy to emerge naturally. Consider how a conversation flows when neither party is trying to dominate or direct it. Ideas and emotions move freely, creating deeper bonds and meaningful exchanges. Acceptance plays a crucial role in practicing Wu Wei in relationships. This doesn't mean passive resignation to harmful behavior, but rather a deep understanding that each person is on their own journey. When we accept others as they are, We release the tension that comes from constant judgment and criticism. This acceptance creates an environment where growth and change can occur naturally, without force or coercion. The practice of Wu Wei also teaches us about timing in relationships. Just as a farmer knows when to plant and when to harvest, we learn to recognize the natural rhythms of connection and distance. Sometimes relationships need space to breathe and grow, while other times they call for closer attention and care. By observing and responding to these natural cycles, we avoid the exhaustion of trying to force intimacy or connection when it isn't flowing naturally. In romantic relationships, Wu Wei manifests as allowing love to unfold naturally rather than pursuing it with desperate attachment. When we stop trying to control the outcome of our relationships, we create space for authentic connection to emerge. This might mean letting go of our timeline for commitment, allowing our partner to process emotions at their own pace, or accepting that some relationships are meant to be temporary teachers rather than permanent fixtures. Family relationships particularly benefit from Wu Wei practice. Instead of trying to force family members to change or meet our expectations, we can practice accepting them while maintaining healthy boundaries. This acceptance often leads to more harmonious relationships than any amount of attempted control or manipulation could achieve. Friendships under Wu Wei become more authentic and less demanding. We learn to allow friends to be themselves without trying to fix their problems or direct their choices. This creates relationships based on genuine connection rather than obligation or expectation. The workplace also offers abundant opportunities to practice Wu Wei in relationships. Rather than forcing cooperation or demanding respect, we can allow natural leadership and collaboration to emerge. This might mean stepping back from micromanaging and trusting colleagues to find their own solutions, or allowing team dynamics to develop organically rather than forcing artificial team building. Wu Wei in relationships ultimately teaches us that the strongest connections are those that arise naturally, without force or manipulation, like water finding its path down a mountain. Authentic relationships will find their way when we stop trying to control their direction. This creates space for genuine intimacy, understanding, and growth in all our human connections. Wu Wei in leadership. A serene lake reflects the sky perfectly when its surface is undisturbed. Similarly, a leader who embodies Wu Wei creates an environment where natural order emerges without force or coercion. This ancient wisdom of leading through non-action might seem counterintuitive in our modern world of aggressive management styles and forceful direction, yet it holds profound truth about effective leadership. The concept of Wu Wei in leadership begins with understanding that true authority doesn't come from position or power, but from alignment with natural principles. A leader practicing Wu Wei recognizes that each team member has inherent talents and motivations. Instead of imposing rigid structures and demands, they create spaces where these natural abilities can flourish. Like a gardener who doesn't pull on plants to make them grow faster, but instead ensures they have the right conditions to thrive, a Wu Wei leader focuses on nurturing the environment rather than forcing outcomes. This approach manifests in various ways. When conflicts arise, rather than immediately jumping in with solutions, a Wu Wei leader allows space for resolution to emerge organically. They trust in their team's capacity to find answers, stepping in only when truly necessary. This requires patience and faith in the natural unfolding of events, much like how water naturally finds its path downstream without being pushed. Natural authority emerges from authenticity and wisdom rather than forced compliance. Leaders practicing Wu Wei understand that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned through consistent actions that align with natural principles. They lead by example, demonstrating rather than dictating. Their presence is felt not through loud commands, but through subtle influences that guide and inspire others to find their own way. Empowering others through non-action doesn't mean being passive or uninvolved. Instead, it means creating conditions where others can act effectively on their own. This might involve removing obstacles, providing resources, or offering gentle guidance when needed. The Wu Wei leader knows when to step back and when to step forward, much like the conductor of an orchestra who knows precisely when to guide and when to let the music flow naturally. The practice of Wu Wei in leadership also involves recognizing and working with natural cycles and timing. Just as farmers understand the seasons for planting and harvesting, effective leaders sense when to initiate change and when to maintain stability. They don't force initiatives at inappropriate times, but wait for the right moment when action will be most effective and meet with least resistance. This leadership style cultivates independence and creativity within teams. When people aren't constantly being told what to do or how to do it, they naturally develop problem-solving skills and take initiative. The Wu Wei leader creates an atmosphere of trust where mistakes are seen as learning opportunities rather than failures to be punished. This approach leads to more innovative solutions and stronger, more resilient teams. A leader practicing Wu Wei understands that control is often an illusion. Instead of trying to manipulate every outcome, they focus on understanding the natural flow of events and working with them. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or direction. Rather, it means finding ways to achieve objectives that align with natural tendencies and strengths. Like a skilled sailor who doesn't fight against the wind, but adjusts the sails to harness its power, the Wu Wei leader accomplishes goals by working with natural forces rather than against them. Wu Wei in daily life. Life flows most naturally when we integrate Wu Wei into our everyday experiences. Consider the morning dew that effortlessly forms on grass blades, or how leaves dance in the wind without resistance. These natural phenomena exemplify the essence of Wu Wei in daily life, allowing things to unfold naturally without forced intervention. The practice of Wu Wei begins the moment we wake up. Instead of immediately reaching for our phones or jumping into our to-do lists, we can take a moment to sense the natural rhythm of our body and mind. This might mean lying still for a few extra minutes, observing our breath, and letting our awareness gradually expand to meet the day. When we rush and force ourselves into action, we often create tension and resistance that stays with us throughout the day. In our daily routines, Wu Wei manifests as the ability to move through tasks with fluid attention rather than rigid control. When preparing breakfast, we can engage with the process mindfully, feeling the texture of foods, noticing the sounds and smells, and allowing our movements to flow naturally. This approach transforms mundane activities into opportunities for presence and connection. The practice extends to our work life as well. Instead of pushing against deadlines and forcing productivity, we can tune into our natural energy cycles. Some people find their creative peak in the early morning, while others flow better in the evening hours. Working with these natural rhythms rather than against them allows us to accomplish more with less struggle. When we encounter obstacles, Wu Wei teaches us to pause and observe rather than immediately react or force solutions. Even in traffic or while waiting in line, Wu Wei offers a different perspective. Rather than viewing these moments as interruptions or wasteful delays, we can see them as natural pauses in the flow of our day. These moments provide opportunities to practice presence, to breathe, and to observe our surroundings without judgment or resistance. Technology and social media often pull us away from our natural state of being. Wu Wei in the digital age might mean setting gentle boundaries around device use, allowing for periods of natural disconnection and maintaining awareness of when we're forcing ourselves to stay connected versus when connection flows naturally. In our homes, Wu Wei can guide us towards simpler living. Instead of cluttering our spaces with items we think we can allow our living spaces to evolve naturally based on what truly serves us. This might mean letting go of excess possessions, creating open spaces that allow energy to flow, and maintaining our environment with ease rather than strain. Physical movement throughout the day can also embody Wu Wei principles. Walking becomes a practice in itself when we allow our bodies to move naturally without forcing pace or posture. Simple stretches and movements can arise spontaneously as our bodies signal their needs, rather than adhering to rigid exercise schedules that might not align with our natural rhythms. Wu Wei in daily life is about finding the balance between structure and flexibility, between doing and being. It's about recognizing when we're pushing too hard and when we're flowing naturally. Through this awareness, we can begin to trust in the natural unfolding of our days, letting go of the need to control every aspect of our experience. As we embrace this approach, we often find that life becomes more peaceful, more efficient, and more aligned with our true nature. Overcoming resistance. The ancient Chinese proverb states, "Water is the softest thing, yet it can penetrate mountains and earth." This wisdom perfectly encapsulates the essence of overcoming resistance through Wu Wei. When we encounter obstacles in life, our natural tendency is to push harder, fight back, or attempt to force our way through. However, the way of Wu Wei teaches us a more elegant approach, one that works with resistance rather than against it. Consider how water moves around a boulder in a stream. It doesn't stop to contemplate the obstacle or waste energy trying to move it. Instead, water naturally finds the path of least resistance, flowing smoothly around the boulder while continuing its journey. This natural response exemplifies the principle of working with resistance rather than fighting against it. Internal resistance often manifests as fear, doubt, or hesitation. These feelings arise from our ego's desire to maintain control and protect us from perceived threats. Yet, when we learn to recognize these internal blocks as natural aspects of our experience rather than enemies to be conquered, we can begin to work with them more effectively. By acknowledging and accepting our resistance, we create space for it to naturally dissolve. The practice of overcoming resistance through Wu Wei involves developing sensitivity to the natural flow of situations. Rather than immediately reacting to challenges with force, we can pause to observe where the energy wants to move naturally. This might mean temporarily stepping back from a difficult situation, allowing tensions to settle, or finding creative alternatives that hadn't been visible when we were stuck in resistance mode. Working with resistance also means recognizing when our efforts are creating unnecessary friction. Often, our struggles stem from trying to force outcomes that aren't aligned with the natural order of things. By cultivating awareness of these moments, we can adjust our approach to one that harmonizes with the inherent flow of circumstances. A practical example of this principle can be found in martial arts. Advanced practitioners know that meeting force with force is inefficient and potentially harmful. Instead, they learn to redirect their opponent's energy, using it to their advantage. This same principle applies to life's challenges. Whether dealing with difficult people, facing career obstacles, or managing personal struggles, the path of least resistance isn't about avoiding challenges or taking the easy way out. Instead, it's about finding the most effective and natural way to achieve our objectives. Sometimes this means letting go of our preconceived notions about how things should unfold and being open to unexpected solutions. Resistance often appears when we're on the verge of significant growth or change. Rather than viewing this resistance as a sign to stop or retreat, we can see it as an invitation to explore more skillful ways of moving forward. This might involve adjusting our timing, modifying our approach, or discovering entirely new pathways we hadn't considered before. By embracing the Wu Wei approach to resistance, we learn to dance with life's challenges rather than wrestling with them. This shift transforms our relationship with obstacles, helping us see them not as barriers to our progress, but as opportunities for growth and deeper understanding. Through this practice, we discover that true power lies not in our ability to force our way through life, but in our capacity to flow with it, finding natural solutions that serve the highest good of all involved. Remember the example of the water and the boulder. The water doesn't fight, doesn't strain, and doesn't give up. It simply finds its way, naturally and effortlessly, continuing its journey toward its destination. In this way, we too can learn to navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom, allowing solutions to emerge naturally as we align ourselves with the inherent flow of existence. Wu Wei and nature. In the gentle rustling of leaves and the steady flow of rivers, nature demonstrates the perfect embodiment of Wu Wei. The natural world operates through an intricate web of relationships and cycles, never forcing or straining, yet accomplishing everything necessary for life to flourish. This profound connection between Wu Wei and nature offers us invaluable lessons for living in harmony with the world around us. Nature moves in cycles and rhythms that maintain perfect balance without conscious effort. Trees don't struggle to grow, they simply respond to sunlight, water, and nutrients. Rivers don't fight their way to the ocean. They follow the path of least resistance, flowing around obstacles rather than trying to break through them. Even in apparent chaos, such as storms or natural disasters, there exists an underlying order that maintains the balance of ecosystems. When we observe nature closely, we notice that everything happens in its own time. Seeds sprout when conditions are right, not when we demand them to grow. Animals migrate according to seasonal changes, not by consulting calendars. This natural timing exemplifies Wu Wei's principle of appropriate action without forcing. The wisdom of nature teaches us that patience and timing are more effective than brute force and hurried action. Environmental harmony through Wu Wei extends beyond mere observation to practical application in our lives. By understanding natural cycles, we can align our actions with them rather than working against them. This might mean planning activities according to our natural energy rhythms, eating seasonal foods, or designing living spaces that work with rather than against the local climate. Such alignment reduces the effort required while increasing effectiveness. Living sustainably becomes a natural expression of Wu Wei when we recognize our place within the larger ecosystem. Instead of attempting to dominate or control nature, we learn to work within its systems. This might involve creating gardens that mimic natural habitats using renewable energy that flows from natural sources, or adopting practices that support rather than deplete natural resources. These approaches require less effort over time because they work with existing natural processes rather than against them. The concept of environmental harmony through Wu Wei also teaches us about resilience. Natural systems don't fight change, they adapt and flow with it. When faced with disturbance, ecosystems demonstrate remarkable ability to find new balance points. This adaptability offers a model for how we might approach challenges in our own lives, not through rigid resistance, but through flexible response. We can practice Wu Wei in nature by spending time in natural settings without agenda or purpose beyond being present. This might mean walking in a forest without destination, sitting by a stream without trying to change its flow, or watching clouds move across the sky without judgment. These experiences help us internalize the rhythm and flow of natural processes, making it easier to embody Wu Wei in other aspects of life. Understanding our connection to nature through Wu Wei also reveals the artificiality of the boundary we often draw between ourselves and the natural world. We are not separate from nature, but part of it. Our bodies follow natural rhythms of sleep and wakefulness, hunger and satiation, activity and rest. By acknowledging and honoring these rhythms rather than fighting them, we reduce struggle and increase harmony in our lives. Nature demonstrates that true power lies not in domination, but in alignment. The oak tree doesn't fight the wind, it bends and sways, growing stronger through flexibility. Water doesn't battle the rock, it flows around it, eventually shaping it through persistent, gentle action. These natural examples show us that Wu Wei isn't about passive acceptance, but about understanding the most effective way to move through the world. Wu Wei in decision-making. A seasoned bamboo farmer once said, "I don't make the bamboo grow, I create the conditions where it naturally flourishes." This ancient wisdom perfectly encapsulates the essence of Wu Wei in decision-making. When we approach choices with the mindset of natural unfolding rather than forced outcomes, we tap into a deeper wisdom that transcends our logical mind. Decision-making in Wu Wei isn't about avoiding decisions or remaining passive. Instead, it's about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of circumstances and allowing our intuitive wisdom to guide us. This approach recognizes that every situation contains its own solution, much like a river naturally finds its path to the ocean. When we force decisions, we often create resistance and unintended consequences. By contrast, Wu Wei decision-making emerges from a place of inner quiet and attunement. The art of timing plays a crucial role in this process. Just as a farmer knows the optimal time to plant and harvest, Wu Wei teaches us to recognize the natural rhythm of opportunities. Sometimes, the wisest decision is to wait. This doesn't stem from fear or procrastination, but from an understanding that actions taken at the right moment require less effort and yield better results. Consider how a surfer waits patiently for the perfect wave rather than fighting against the ocean's rhythm. Intuitive wisdom develops through quieting the mind and paying attention to subtle signals. Our bodies and unconscious minds often recognize patterns and solutions before our conscious minds catch up. When we're faced with a decision, instead of immediately jumping into analysis, Wu suggests creating space for insights to emerge naturally. This might mean taking a walk in nature, practicing meditation, or simply allowing the question to rest in our minds without forcing an answer. The practice of Wu Wei in decision-making also involves releasing attachment to specific outcomes. When we cling too tightly to our desired results, we often miss better possibilities that naturally present themselves. This doesn't mean abandoning our goals, but rather holding them lightly and remaining open to how they might manifest differently than we initially imagined. Like water flowing around rocks in a stream, solutions often come in unexpected forms. Real wisdom in decision-making comes from understanding the interconnected nature of all things. Every choice creates ripples that affect the whole system. Wu Wei encourages us to consider these broader implications, not through exhaustive analysis, but through developing sensitivity to the natural balance of situations. This might mean observing how similar situations have unfolded in the past, or noting how nature resolves similar challenges. Patience becomes a powerful ally in this approach. Modern society often demands immediate answers and quick solutions, but Wu Wei reminds us that some decisions need time to mature. Just as fruit ripens naturally when given proper time and conditions, our choices often become clearer when we don't rush them. This patience allows us to see options that might have remained hidden under the pressure of immediate action. The practice of Wu Wei in decision-making ultimately leads to choices that feel effortless and aligned. When we learn to trust this process, we find that many decisions make themselves. Our role becomes more about creating the conditions for clarity and remaining attentive to the natural unfolding of circumstances. Like the bamboo farmer, we focus on nurturing the environment where wisdom can naturally emerge, rather than forcing solutions through sheer will. The practice of Wu Wei. A Zen master once said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. This simple yet profound teaching embodies the essence of practicing Wu Wei in our daily lives. The practice of Wu Wei isn't about adding more activities to your life, but rather about transforming how you approach everything you already do. Meditation serves as a foundational practice for cultivating Wu Wei. Begin by sitting quietly and observing your breath without trying to control it. Notice how the breath naturally flows in and out without any effort on your part. This simple observation helps develop the awareness needed for Wu Wei. As you sit, watch thoughts arise and pass away without getting caught up in them. This meditation practice teaches us to be present without forcing or controlling our experience. Physical exercises that embody Wu Wei principles include Tai Chi, Qigong, and gentle yoga. These practices emphasize moving with awareness, following the body's natural rhythm, and finding balance between effort and ease. In Tai Chi, practitioners learn to yield rather than resist, to flow rather than fight. The movements are soft yet powerful, demonstrating how effectiveness comes from alignment with natural principles rather than brute force. Daily rituals provide opportunities to practice Wu Wei in ordinary moments. When brewing tea, for example, engage fully with each step of the process. Feel the weight of the kettle. Observe the steam rising. Listen to the water being poured. These simple actions become meditation in motion when performed with presence and attention. Similarly, walking can become a practice of Wu Wei when we allow our bodies to move naturally, feeling the ground beneath our feet and the air around us. The body itself offers wisdom in practicing Wu Wei. Notice how your heart beats, your lungs breathe, and your digestive system functions, all without conscious control. These natural processes demonstrate perfect Wu Wei. We can learn from this innate wisdom by paying attention to our body's signals and working with, rather than against, our natural rhythms. Incorporating Wu Wei into physical movement means finding the sweet spot between effort and relaxation. Whether exercising, dancing, or performing household chores, observe where you might be using unnecessary tension or force. Experiment with doing less while accomplishing the same result. Often, we discover that better outcomes arise from aligned action rather than forced effort. Sound plays a powerful role in Wu Wei practice. Certain forms of music, particularly those with natural rhythms or flowing melodies, can help induce a state of effortless awareness. Chanting or toning exercises allow us to experience how sound naturally resonates through the body without pushing or straining. Creating conducive environments supports Wu Wei practice. Arrange your space to allow for natural flow and movement. Remove unnecessary obstacles and clutter. Consider how light, air, and energy move through your environment. This external organization reflects and supports the internal state of Wu Wei. Time itself becomes a practice ground for Wu Wei. Instead of fighting against time or trying to control it, work with natural cycles and rhythms. Notice the optimal times for different activities. Some periods naturally suit focused work, while others call for rest and renewal. Aligning with these natural patterns reduces struggle and increases effectiveness. The practice of Wu Wei ultimately extends beyond formal exercises into every aspect of life. Each interaction, task, and challenge becomes an opportunity to embody effortless action. Through consistent practice, we develop an intuitive sense of when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen, when to move forward and when to yield. This natural wisdom emerges not from intellectual understanding, but from direct experience of living in harmony with the Tao. Modern applications of Wu Wei. In the bustling landscapes of our contemporary world, the ancient wisdom of Wu Wei finds renewed relevance and profound applications. As we navigate through the complexities of modern life, the principle of effortless action becomes not just a philosophical concept, but a practical approach to achieving harmony and success in various aspects of our lives. In the business realm, Wu Wei manifests as an innovative leadership style that emphasizes organic growth and natural development. Companies that embrace this approach focus on creating environments where creativity and productivity flow naturally, rather than forcing outcomes through rigid controls and excessive pressure. Consider the success of organizations that have adopted flexible work arrangements, allowing employees to work in alignment with their natural rhythms and strengths. These companies often experience higher productivity, increased innovation, and better employee satisfaction. The entrepreneurial journey particularly benefits from Wu Wei principles. Instead of aggressively pushing into markets, successful entrepreneurs often achieve better results by identifying and flowing with existing opportunities. They observe market trends, listen to customer needs, and allow their businesses to evolve organically in response to real demands. This approach reduces resistance, conserves resources, and creates more sustainable business models. In personal development, Wu Wei offers a refreshing alternative to the prevalent hustle culture. Rather than forcing personal growth through rigid self-improvement regimens, individuals can achieve more by aligning with their natural inclinations and strengths. This might mean choosing career paths that resonate with inherent talents rather than pursuing socially prescribed success metrics. It could involve learning new skills through immersion and natural interest rather than rigid study schedules. The digital age presents unique opportunities to apply Wu Wei principles. In social media and online presence, authentic engagement often yields better results than aggressive marketing strategies. Content creators who share genuine insights and naturally valuable information tend to build more loyal following than those who force engagement through manipulative tactics. Time management in the modern context benefits greatly from Wu Wei principles. Instead of cramming more activities into each day, practitioners learn to identify and flow with their natural energy cycles. This might mean scheduling creative work during peak mental alertness periods and routine tasks during lower energy times. The result is often greater productivity with less stress and burnout. In the realm of technology, Wu Wei principles guide the development of more intuitive and user-friendly systems. The best technological solutions are those that work so naturally that users barely notice them. Think of how the most successful apps and devices feel like natural extensions of human capability rather than complicated tools requiring extensive learning. The application of Wu Wei in modern health and wellness moves away from extreme fitness regimens and strict diets toward more sustainable, enjoyable approaches to well-being. This might involve choosing physical activities that bring natural joy, eating intuitively rather than following rigid rules, and finding balance through activities that naturally reduce stress. In our relationships with technology, Wu Wei teaches us to maintain healthy boundaries without forcing disconnection. Rather than imposing strict digital detox rules, we can develop natural rhythms of engagement and disengagement that support our well-being while maintaining necessary connections. The modern workplace benefits from Wu Wei through the implementation of agile methodologies and flexible structures that allow for natural adaptation to changing circumstances. Teams that can flow with change, rather than resist it, often navigate challenges more successfully and maintain higher morale. The environmental challenges of our time call for Wu Wei approaches that work with natural systems rather than against them. This includes sustainable business practices, eco-friendly technologies, and lifestyle choices that naturally align with environmental preservation. Wu Wei reminds us that in our modern quest for efficiency and success, the path of least resistance often leads to the most sustainable and satisfying results. By learning to work with the natural flow of events, relationships, and opportunities, we can achieve our goals while maintaining harmony with ourselves and our environment.